Okay, so Hooded Justice is arguably the most mysterious and disturbingly dark character in the entire Watchmen story. The guy who started it all by masking up and fighting crime has an enigmatic past shrouded in speculation. Nobody really knew for certain who was behind that mask. Not even the members of the Minutemen. His co-workers, for all intents and purposes, did not know who Hooded Justice was. What we do know for sure is that he was always portrayed and described as very ruthlessly violent and power hungry. Throughout this story, we get a couple clues pointing to him being Rolf Mueller, a circus strongman who immigrated from Germany. And that's what we will explore today. Now, there are varying different versions of this character, from the before Watchmen prequel comics to the HBO Watchmen TV show. Now, those are wildly different versions of the character, but as always, I will stick to the truest version, which is what Alan Moore put in that comic book. So I will stick to the original comic written by Alan Moore and the source book. Remember to like and subscribe to my channel for more Watchmen content. With that said, let's get into this episode minute by minute. Hooded Justice. There is very little confirmed about Hooded Justice, but we are going to go off with who is most likely the real identity of Hooded Justice, and that is Rolf Mueller. And I think Alan Moore intended us to get to the conclusion that, oh yeah, this guy is most likely Hooded Justice. This story begins in 1919 when Henrik and Greta Mueller moved into the US from Germany with their 2-year-old son, Rolf. Henrik would constantly beat and abuse his wife until one day Rolf had enough of that abuse and beat the shit out of his dad. And I think this is the moment when a little something awoke inside of Rolf, because after this point he just turned into a very brutal individual when it came to violence. So yeah, I think this is the moment when he said, yeah, I kind of like beating the shit out of people. He was 13 years old and already measured 6'2" and weighed 210 pounds. So yeah, this guy was pretty much a monster. Eventually and naturally, his dad left them, and at 15 years old, Rolf went in to join the Saxon and Shanley Circus, where he was a performer as a strongman. But the circus isn't all he joined. Oh no. He also joined a little known group called the KKK. Yeah. Not a great start for Rolf. This is where a lot of his co-workers in the circus would talk about his inhuman temper and how thirsty he was for violence. After a circus performance, he and 4 other KKK members hunted down and killed a young black couple. And nothing really happened to them after that because it was the 30s, so, you know. In 1938, Rolf left the Saxon and Shanley Circus to join the NYC Shriners, a circus stationed in the New York City area. 6 months later, the first accounts of Hooded Justice surfaced to the public eye. After this, he kept appearing as a circus performance, but he would constantly miss shows, probably because of all the beatings he was getting as a crime fighter. And because of his escapades as a masked vigilante, unknowingly he sparked a fascination for superheroes and a desire inside others to actually do what he was doing. Which was probably out of a fucked up violence, thirst, and desire to just beat the shit out of people, and not an actual moral stance on justice per se. Over the next several months, many other vigilantes emerged, enough of them to actually form a group. Amongst them were Captain Metropolis, the Comedian, Night Owl, Mothman, the Silhouette, Silk Spectre, Dollar Bill, and Hooded Justice. The Minutemen name actually came from a militia group from the Revolutionary War. So yeah, that's where they get their name Minutemen, but actually fit the theme of the WATCHMEN comic book too, and also references an historical group. Rolf would eventually develop a homosexual relationship with one of his teammates, Captain Metropolis Nelson Gardner. Now, something that wasn't really clear to me ever was that, like, if they were in a homosexual relationship, did Nelson Gardner ever really find out about Hooded Justice's real identity, or did they just have sex with the mask on, like, you know, as a turn on, basically? I don't know. Probably the latter. Larry Schexnayder, the team's manager, found out about this and decided that Hooded Justice should be seen with Silk Spectre to make the press think that they were the ones in a relationship. After a meeting in 1939, Hooded Justice stops the comedian Edward Blake from almost SAing Sally Jupiter, the Silk Spectre. The comedian didn't like that. We'll come back to that later. Now, this is where it gets a little bit weird, because in 1939, as Germany was invading Europe, Hooded Justice made a lot of comments supporting what Hitler was doing during the war years, which were, you know, it put him in a lot of negative press with the public and the rest of the teammates in the Minutemen. They were like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Particularly the Silhouette, who was a Jewish immigrant. In 1942, the US joins World War II. Rolf manages to dodge the draft basically by keeping his identity a secret. So during the war years, he kept operating as Hooded Justice in the Minutemen. In 1945, the war ends and Hooded Justice throws a villain named Captain Axis off a submarine into the Atlantic Ocean. And let me tell you, he didn't resurface. He killed that motherfucker. He's dead. As the years passed, the Minutemen shrinked in numbers. The dollar bill and the Silhouette were killed. Sally, the Silk Spectre, retired. And the villains that were fighting were pretty much non-existent. So in 1949, the group disbanded. In 1955, the House of Un-American Activities Committee rounded up all the vigilantes that were active during the 40s and pretty much compelled them to reveal their identities. Hooded Justice refused, and on April 16 that year, he basically disappeared forever, never to be seen again, alongside with Rolf Mueller. So this is where the connection comes. A couple months after that, the body of Rolf Mueller washes off the shore of Boston with a bullet to the head. And this is where the conspiracy theories come, because people think that the comedian took revenge on Rolf for beating him up years prior and used his government connections to cover the whole thing up. Now, like I said earlier, this entire Rolf Mueller Hooded Justice connection is speculation. This is nothing is confirmed. But the thing is, if the clues are there, they're laid out, the most likely option here is that Alan Moore himself just meant for us to think that this horrible piece of shit was the Hooded Justice, and he was the one who started it all. And this makes me think of a comment he made about Birth of a Nation being the catalyst that inspired all the superhero movies coming out later. If you don't know, Birth of a Nation is a movie that depicts the KKK as the heroes. I think that was behind the creation of Hooded Justice. If you look at his mask, it kind of looked like a KKK hood. So yeah, I think that's what behind the Hooded Justice thing. I think he meant for us to think that this fucking KKK member was the one that sparked the superhero movement in the United States, just as he thinks that the Birth of a Nation sparked the superhero movies in our culture. So yeah, I think if he didn't wanted us to think that, he wouldn't have laid it out so plainly. Anyways, guys, that is my video for today. Remember to like and subscribe for more content like this. I'll be doing Watchmen Minutemen videos for each week until I'm done with the Minutemen. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Anyways, guys, that's it for today. Peace.